Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones, back here today with a little bit different of an episode. It's the holiday season, it's Christmas time, so I'm out and about traveling, seeing some family, getting stuff done here before the end of the year, but I didn't want to go silent on the show. We have a fun interview with Bobby Buckets Riddell, color commentator for Purdue basketball on the Purdue Radio Network. The interview was recorded before the Auburn game, so all of this is recorded before the Auburn game. Whether Purdue won, whether Purdue lost, I don't know as I'm talking right now, and we don't know how that game goes as Bobby and I talk, but I think it's a really fun conversation looking at the Boilermakers through the first 11 games, talking about some of the unique perspective that Bobby has from being so close to the program, both as a player back in the mid to late 2000s and now, of course, with the radio broadcast. So without further ado, here's my interview with Bobby Buckets Riddell. Here today, special Christmas week episode with Bobby Buckets Riddell. As I said in the open here, this is recorded before the Auburn games, so if anything earth-shattering took place in that, we won't get to it here. But Bobby, Purdue has reached the third way through the season, 10-1, fairly, where you'd think Purdue would be. You're around the program as much as anyone. You see the program on a day-in, day-out basis. Through the first 11 games, what really stands out to you as you look at the Boilermakers so far?
Good question. Yeah, it's definitely kind of been an interesting season so far. I feel like, of course, when you start the year out, losing in the exhibition game to Kentucky, that was kind of just a weird start because there was all the buildup in the preseason with being the number one ranked team in the country and so many great players coming back from last year's team and all the hype that I think was deservedly so, coming in. And then, yes, we didn't put any preparation pretty much at all, except for going over a little bit of personnel stuff for that Kentucky game. They didn't really dive into offensive and defensive sort of schematics. And I think that showed clearly because, we weren't at our best, but I still was expecting us to kind of go in there. And even though it's Kentucky and a tough place to play, I knew they'd be fired up to play the number one team in the country, even though it's just an exhibition. I thought we'd still go in there and kind of put it to, I don't know if I would say put it to them, but I think I expect us to go in there, play well, put our best foot forward and kind of show like, okay, this is why we were thought to be preseason number one. And, a lot of different factors, but we just didn't play well that day. And mainly to me, we just didn't shoot well that day because I actually did feel like we got a number of quality looks. So then by losing that game, that was kind of like, brought everybody back down to earth a little bit. Like, okay, maybe we're not just going to be a team that can just roll the ball out, show up and win regardless. And that was probably reality anyways. But I think, you can kind of talk yourself into some delusional stuff sometimes when you're preseason number one and there's all that hype. And then you all of a sudden the regular season starts and you don't have Trey Kaufman-Renn, right? And he's obviously a major piece of the puzzle, and we're really struggling to rebound in some of those games at home. And so then you're kind of like, man, like what's going on? But you're like, well, I shouldn't judge it just because we don't have one of our preseason All-American player in the lineup. And then Trey comes back, you get the huge win in Alabama, and I felt like he really made his presence known from a physicality standpoint, intensity standpoint in that game. And that was kind of a huge statement for the team. I felt like we needed that just confidence-wise for the team at that point, just to kind of show like, okay, yeah, we are one of the baddest teams, in the country, and we can, beat anybody on their home floor. And then I think it's just kind of been pretty business-like since then. Really nice tournament in the Bahamas. That statement win at Texas Tech, I think, was a really nice kind of like, all right, yeah, telling the whole country, we're not only a good team, but we can, blow you out. We can blow out other good teams if they don't bring their, A game against us. And then, we unfortunately run into that bump in the road with Iowa State at home. Just unfortunate, right? You get all that excitement for a big home game. It's the weekend, national television. And to me, one of those kind of situations where if you don't play well against a really good team, that's the sort of thing that can happen to you, and it can snowball quickly, which we saw in that second half. Um, both teams didn't really play that great from an offensive standpoint in the first half, and we saw it was a close game. And then in that second half, we just could not hit a shot to save our lives, had some unfortunate turnovers, and then they, of course, could not miss to save their life. And so when those kind of two things collided, that led to, and there was, of course, defensive breakdowns and things of that nature that allowed them quality looks. But also when you don't make a shot, you never get a chance to like set your defense and you get the crowd into a little bit. And the one time in that second half that really did start to happen, Momcilovic hit that crazy fadeaway along the baseline as the shot clock expired, and that really took the wind out of our sails. So, long story short, yes, it's been kind of one of those business-like seasons to this point. I think we've had some really good moments, but also some moments where it was, disappointing. But also we're a team, I think, that we were living and dying by the three quite a bit there early on. In the last couple of games, it feels like we've been able to establish Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman running the block a little bit more. And certainly part of that's just been how the defense has been playing us too. They've kind of allowed those guys to go one-on-one a lot. Part of what made Iowa State's game plan successful on that particular day was they were very aggressive with their double teams. They were not going to let the Trey Kaufman runs, the Oscar Cloughs, get easy post catches and then just go to work one-on-one. Their scheme is to, really double hard on the catch on those type of things and bring a lot of the defense over to that side of the floor and make you beat them with three-pointers. And on that day, we unfortunately missed, a number of good looks from three. On a different day, if we're making some of those threes, obviously it changes the complexion of that game. But that's part of what Iowa State's, that's their deal. They pressure you on the perimeter. They make it tough. There was times we tried to go high-low in that game, but their pressure on the perimeter really didn't allow us to get to those sorts of opportunities. So give credit to them. But, if you make threes against them, then, all of a sudden you can blow the doors off, I'm sure. So be interested to see if we got to play them again. But to this point, I've been pleased, and will be interesting to see how we show up against this Auburn team who, a totally different team this year, but a team that gave us the business last year.
It's kind of funny that Iowa State game. Iowa State was by far the better team on that day. It did feel like, though, Iowa State was making everything. The shot making was really impressive. And as you said, Purdue got some good looks from three that weren't going in. And it just, at that point, you could kind of feel the frustration snowball a little bit into turnovers and just an all around rough day.
Yeah, it felt like that first half, there was like kind of that 5 to 7 minute stretch where if we make a couple of those open threes, now we go up 10, 12, 14 points because that was at that same stretch where they were struggling and turning it over a lot. And, now if you go up 12, 14, place is going crazy, like they start to feel some in-game pressure. It flips the game, obviously. So I do think, like you said, they were the better team that day. They definitely deserved to win. But, if you play that game 10 times, there's a lot of different scenarios for sure.
You kind of hinted at it. There was so much known about this Purdue team coming into the season, getting Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn back with a pair of sophomore guards coming back. What has surprised you the most through the first 11 games of the season?
I'll try to not be as long-winded as I was that first answer. I think, it was super exciting to have those three guys back. I mean, just the offense ran through those guys last year, and they're going to be the high usage players once again this year. And it's great to have that nucleus back, the camaraderie they have, just the cohesion on the floor. Those guys know where they're going to be. We see, all these passes that Braden Smith makes to those two guys where he just knows where they're going to be on the floor pretty much at all times. And I think from a leadership standpoint, they're doing a really good job as well from the stuff I see. So, I think really happy with them so far. What surprised me a little bit is Trey Kaufman-Renn, to this point, hasn't really got hasn't got going on the block. And some of it's, opportunity based and the way the other teams have defended us and just things of that nature. But he also, he missed a couple games. He hasn't really been like getting to the foul line a whole lot this year compared to maybe how he did in the past. And I'm sure some of that's maybe just not getting a super friendly whistle compared to the past, or maybe also just not nearly as many opportunities, one on one on the block and things of that nature. And obviously, we're playing different this year due to having two true centers that are typically out there with him, one of the two that are out there with him. So last year, when he played a lot as the five, maybe some more space to maneuver and more opportunities to get going downhill, which can maybe result in getting more contact and getting to the free throw line thing, like that. But I think it seems like we're starting to find a little bit more of an identity here the last couple of games, playing inside out at times. Because I do think we can be a deadly inside out team because not only is Trey a legitimate, low block guy, but I think Oscar Clough, with his array of moves, with the ability to score over either shoulder, with either hand, his footwork, his size and physicality, and he also, both him and Trey can both pass the ball pretty well for bigs. I like the idea of playing inside out because it's pretty rare you're going to have a team that's got two really good low post defenders on the floor at the same time. Because a lot of teams, as you've seen the last couple of games, don't even have one, elite low post defender, and we got two elite low post scorers in my eyes. So we could really, go matchup hunting to some degree. I think depending on what the other team's personnel is defensive wise, and then we have the ability with guys like Fletch and Braden to really shoot the basketball well. I think Braden the last couple of games has just been fabulous. Iowa State, he had some unfortunate turnovers, but I think a lot of those to me happened kind of in the second half when the kind of game had gotten out of hand and he was kind of doing some things out of desperation. But for the most part, I think he's been, just unbelievable. His activity, the way he just flies around the court, and he's an elite spot up 3-point shooter. I love whenever we get a chance to get him spot up threes. Which is why I like when Oscar and Trey and guys like that are willing passers out of the post, because those kick out threes, he shoots at a high percentage. How about some of the behind the back passes and stuff that he's been doing this year? It's like
The
every game.
one he had the one at Rutgers. So was it a behind the back into
Yeah,
Oscar Clough who's diving to the basket in between two guys? I mean,
you're
it,
right. The Rutgers one was because the one he had in the Bahamas and then the one he had the other day were both excellent, elite behind the back passes that I would have not, even attempted in my dreams. But those were more kind of like directly side to side. The one at
yeah,
Rutgers was like extra wrapped at like more of an angle towards the rim and hit Oscar in stride between two defenders. Like that was the highest degree of difficulty one. So I'm glad you pointed that one out because, yeah, that one at Rutgers was extremely elite.
yeah. He's unbelievable. It really is. It's fun to watch. It's so funny that in in my time watching Purdue basketball, and I know I can read a record book. There's never been someone who passes like that at Purdue, who just dishes out dimes in that way, and it's fascinating to see how much Purdue has evolved its offense to, for lack of a better term, just to let Braden Smith go out there and cook a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He's phenomenal. I've never seen someone pass the way he does, the way he sees the floor. Um, so I compared him to Brett Favre the other day on the radio when he tried to make a cross court pass between like three guys and he got tipped and stolen because you're a little younger than me, but I don't know how much you remember Brett Favre or the people listening to the pod will
I'm
remember
a
him. But he was
I'm a
go
Bears
ahead.
fan, Bobby. I know
Yeah.
way too much. I'm a Bears fan.
So you remember Brett Favre to some degree, like just one of those guys, like elite player, but got himself in trouble from time to time trying to throw the ball into like too tight of windows because he just had great arm strength and maybe he was just trying to have some fun out there. But Braden I think does that sometimes too. Like he's such a good passer, can make incredible passes into tight windows, and he sees guys open that a lot of guys wouldn't often see, that he'll sometimes try to make that super tight window pass, and it, every once in a while it does get him in trouble and it might get deflected. But just, some of the passes he throws, there was a pass his freshman year when I was just like, holy cow, this dude's crazy special. We were at Florida State, and our radio position was right by Purdue's bench in Tallahassee, courtside, and he was dribbling up the right sideline right in front of like us and the bench. And Caleb First was in the far left corner, and Braden off the dribble, just in one motion, literally off the dribble, whipped this pass cross court, and it hit Caleb First in stride or in the shot pocket. I mean, I don't know how far that pass is, like a 45-foot pass or something, and it just hit him right in the shot pocket, and Caleb made a three. And I just had the perfect angle, like literally at the pass as it transpired. And I was like, okay, first off, how did he see Caleb? And secondly, like, how did he execute that off the dribble? Like most guys, if they were just standing there unguarded, would have a hard time like executing that pass like he did, let alone he was being guarded like by like a 6'4" athletic dude. And he just like rifles that pass. And I was like, all right, this guy's special. But yeah, his ability to play at a super fast pace while also seeming to stay under control is incredible. Like, because funny, I'm not obviously even close to the player Braden Smith is, but because I'm not too far off from him in height, and because I was a really good shooter like he was, I have some characteristics that are similar to him, and I played at Purdue and played at that level. So I try to like think, man, like how much different Braden is than me. And it is just crazy because like a lot of our physical attributes and things, like we could both shoot, we have some similar characteristics, but it's just he's got some of those other things that I just like in my like when I got going really fast, it didn't really, things did not turn out great for me very often when that happened. Like, but he can get going really fast and he still like maintains that being under control, seeing the floor well. And he also has an uncanny ability and a confidence level. Like I rarely would jump up in the air to pass because obviously a lot of people are told not to do that because you can get yourself in trouble, right? But he has an uncanny ability to do that and execute it. But in reality, like it can be advantageous, right? Because it can open up passing windows when you're elevated that you might not be able to see or get to when you're on the ground. And so it's part of his, brilliance is he does things that would get a lot of people in trouble, but for him, it actually makes him better. And that's part of his specialness, I guess.
You hinted a little bit on just the expectations coming into this season being extremely high. As you kind of look at what we've seen so far through 11 games, where do you see as the biggest areas that Purdue needs to improve or grow in order to meet some of those expectations, find their way going down I-65 to Indianapolis in the first weekend of April?
Don't shoot terribly from three at the wrong time.
From your lips to God's ears, right?
Yeah, that would certainly be one I would like to make sure doesn't happen. Because, that is fact, right? Like it's a make or miss game. And our two losses this year, if you include the Kentucky exhibition, have been our two worst 3-point shooting performances. The Iowa State loss and then that Kentucky exhibition. Like those have been our two worst 3-point shooting losses or performances of the year and have coincided with our two losses. So, you can't just have, I don't think, and hopefully this is where I guess I can talk about maybe something that we can improve on to this point. And this is where establishing maybe more of that inside presence of Oscar and Trey, can help mitigate this. But to this point, I haven't seen, like, I feel like we're a team that can withstand a really poor shooting game against a high quality team and still win. We shot it pretty poorly most of the Marquette game. Second half, we shot a little bit better, but offensively, I didn't think we shot it great against Marquette. But because Marquette is not a great team this year. They were struggling too, and weren't able to expose us, and so that allowed us to still win, even though we didn't shoot it great. The question is, can you beat a Texas Tech, uh, Iowa State, an Arizona, like a really good team in the tournament and like in a Sweet 16 Elite Eight type game if you shoot it poorly? And that's what I don't think I've seen yet. And so where I think we still got to improve the defense. Um, I think from offensively, just finding other ways to score when the outside shot's not falling, getting to the foul line. And that's where I do like that we've, started to establish our interior guys a little bit more. Obviously, sometimes that's you got to take what the defense gives you, right? And Iowa State, for example, the way they defend us, like I said earlier, like you weren't going to get a lot of easy post touches, you weren't going to get a lot of easy opportunities in the paint. They were at times taking, I don't know if you saw any of these clips or like if you rewatched the game at all or saw any of those clips that were floating around X, but they were taking, as we were having like one of our wings like cut through to the corner to like go space and spot up. Iowa State was taking that guy and he would stop in the middle of the lane and just basically stand there in the lane to try to take away Trey Kaufman-Wren's like short roll. Basically just saying like, we don't care about the guy cutting through. Like he could be open at the rim, he could be open at the corner, but like we are going to do everything we can to take away this like primary action you like to run. And basically we're trying to take the ball out of one of your best players' hands and make you have your role players beat you. And that is something that this Purdue team at times has struggled with, right? Their role players have been a little up and down. There's been times Omer Meyer has looked great. Some other games, not so much. Jakari Harris, same thing. Had a really good game at Rutgers. Jakari did, but has, struggled shooting the ball. Got the stats pulled up here. He's just 28% from three. Omer Meyer's 27% from three. Sometimes it does seem to feel like those guys are, when they're in, it seems to feel like the ball's finding them when they're wide open for spot up threes a lot here as of late. And that's probably not by accident. I think certainly with the Iowa State game, those two guys went 0 for 6 from three in the Iowa State game. And it certainly felt like at times that was not an accident that those were the guys that were open. Because when you're playing a really good offensive team, the number one offensive team in the country, from a KenPom standpoint that Purdue is, as a defense, you have to give something up. Like there's no way you're stopping Purdue just mano-a-mano at every position. So you have to sell out on some things. And, that's, what can happen. Like against Houston last year, Miles Colvin, if I recall, kind of had a poor 3-point. I think he was like 1 for 6 from three. And, that's the way the tournament goes, right? Like, do your role players step up and hit big shots in big moments? Because the defense, if they're good, like bad defenses just let your best players get easy looks all the time, right? And they thrive.
Right.
Good defenses are designed to make your supplemental players beat you more often than not. And, so Jack Benner, like how does he continue to progress? I think CJ Cox has proven to this point, like very capable knockdown shooter, capable also of getting his own shot off the dribble, using ball screens. I think he's really settled in nicely in that starting lineup as being someone who, like we saw in the Bahamas at times, like get really red hot, but can also, just be solid, play good defense, pick his spots as well. So I'm really looking at Purdue's bench, just kind of, monitoring that to see, Liam Murphy's a guy who could definitely will be interesting. Is he someone that they, use in spot minutes here or there in certain matchups? He's probably more of a matchup guy, but, his 3-point shooting is special. And, I watch that guy and shoot around and practice all the time, and it's an elite shot. So, there could be moments where he's able to come in and change a game with his jumper. And, like the Iowa State game would be an interesting one. If they could do it again, would Coach Painter maybe call Liam's number a little earlier just to potentially see if he could come in and kind of take the lid off? Always a hindsight 2020 thing there, but will be interesting to see how the bench, I think, continues to produce moving forward, because those guys are going to be crucial. If you want to make a deep run, you're going to need, kind of the random guy every now and then to step up.
I'll close with this, and it's a little bit different from this year's team, but you have a unique perspective. You played for Matt Painter when he was just starting at Purdue, and he was what, 35, 36 years old.
Yeah.
You've had a front row seat for the last 5, 6 years to the program as a radio color commentator. How have you seen him evolve? Not that he wasn't a great coach then, but into one of the best and most widely respected coaches in the country now.
It's been awesome. It's been really cool to see Coach Painter just get super comfortable, super confident in, his coaching position that he's in now. I mean, I admired the heck out of him when I played. I was just like so impressed with his basketball knowledge, with his poise and composure. That was one thing that I always could never get over, was just how poised and composed he was at like such a young age when I was playing. You know, I don't think I ever was like thought when we were in the huddle, tense moment. I never was like, oh, Coach Paint seems like he's flustered, or like never once was that like this guy's flustered. Like he always seemed totally composed, and at such a young age, I thought that was impressive. And that's when I was like, okay, this guy like is definitely going to be a good head coach, because you got to be able to like keep your composure in those moments, think about the next play at hand, think about the strategy in the moment. And he processes so well, and he's got an incredible basketball mind. He's like a basketball encyclopedia with his knowledge of like, he'll remember things from like random games that you're like, 20 years ago, and you're like, how do you remember that stuff? But that's just how he's wired. And now I just think at this stage of his career, he's just so comfortable and so relaxed and just so confident in himself and what he's built. And he knows what succeeds at this level now. And so he knows what to look for. And yeah, it's been really, really impressive. It's obviously what's made this radio gig so fun for me, is to be back around Coach Painter on a more regular basis, be back around Coach Paul Lusk, who was an assistant when I played, Elliot Bloom and Nick Taruso, who were on the staff, were on the staff when I played. And so just been really neat to be around those guys again and just get that first hand view once again of Coach Painter. But while it's just also been really neat to see the transformation of some of the things that he's done within his program since I played, because he definitely had his own twist when I played, but it was certainly at that point still a lot of like the Bruce Weber, Gene Katie stuff that he learned as a player and as a young assistant coach. Like offensively, we ran pretty much 85 to 90% motion offense, and it was really good motion. Like I loved practicing it and running it, probably because also it's a very equal opportunity type of offense. So when you're this, so-called fifth option on the court, a lot of times, like I often was if I was ever out there, the chance of me, setting a screen and popping and getting open, or coming off a screen and being open, was the same as Etwan Moore or Robbie Hummel or Juwan Johnson, right? So like for me, I loved it because a lot of times, if I set a screen for Etwan, my man's more worried about Etwan, right? So guess who's open? Me. And, there's that potential to get a shot. Now Coach Painter runs a lot more set plays. Our offense is a lot more set play driven, which it's probably like 90-10 now the other way, which is great, I think, from a Coach Painter and a coaching staff standpoint, because if you want to give Zach Edey the basketball, you don't have to worry about a motion offense and like maybe the guards throw it to Zach, maybe they don't, whatever. Like we're going to run a play where the design for the play is to throw the ball to Big Z. And that way I know Big Z gets a touch, right? Like you can control a lot more as a head coach when you can call plays to get your best players the ball, or like if there's matchups that you like, right? Like you can call plays that are designed to get said player in said matchup. And he's developed such a great offensive system. It's like an NFL college football like type of playbook system, all these like code words that mean different actions. And some of the play call names are. I think Braden Smith was kind of talking about some of that stuff on his pod the other day about how long some of the play calls are. It's impressive to me that Braden Smith can like handle pressure, bring like handling full court pressure is stressful enough. Obviously, Braden's way better at it than like I ever was, but like I always remember like that's stressful trying to like handle pressure, bring the ball to court. He's having to like look across and like try to read like an 8-play set play on a whiteboard that PJ Thompson wrote. PJ better have good handwriting, right? It's like you can't be scribbling over there like, doctor handwriting when I'm getting pressured full court, So that's kind of funny. Like I'm always like, man, I hope Braden can read the play while he's like getting pestered by one of the best on-ball defenders in the country or something. So, the new offensive system is phenomenal. And the guys are really bought into it, I think. And it just gives Coach Payne and that staff control to get their best players the ball in the best positions and against the best matchups. And it's really made us thrive offensively, right? Obviously, really good players too. The offense won't work unless you have guys that can play. And Coach's ability just to identify talent, right? Like his ability to find these guys. And he's, got lucky, of course. He's got fortunate that maybe some of these guys like the Zach Eades and Braden Smiths of the world have become even better players than he probably even possibly imagined. But he saw that they had the ability that would translate, and he's been able to put them into a system where he can, make those flowers bloom per se, with the coaching and the culture that he's built there. So, it's been a dream to be able to come back and be a part of it.
That's Bobby Buckets Riddell, folks. My free Zoom is about to expire here in a couple minutes.
Bobby keeps going too long with his answers.
Hey, that's okay. If you want more Bobby Buckets as well, you're going to be on the Locked On Cubs podcast coming up, right?
Yeah, going to sneak on a little Locked On Cubs holiday podcast. They've been doing it annually the last couple of years, and are able to invite some of the listeners on. And I've been kind of one of those diehard everyday listeners. I'm a huge Cubs fan, and I really enjoy their podcast. And so I think the plan is for me to slide on for a quick little segment. Later this week.
Good deal. Maybe next summer we'll have a all-star break vent session here about the Cubs for the Boilers and Beyond Cubs fan listeners or something.
I like that idea.
Good deal. Bobby, thanks for taking some time. I appreciate it. I know our listeners will enjoy this. Have a Merry Christmas to you and yours, and enjoy a little bit of time with only a couple games here before the new year.
Yeah, a little bit slower time for sure. So it's kind of nice. Still get a little taste of Boiler Ball, but also some time to spend with family and friends around the holidays. So it's nice. Yeah. Merry Christmas to you and your family as well.
You bet. Thanks, Bobby. There he is, Bobby Buckets Riddell. Thanks again to Bobby for coming on. A really good time. Always good to talk to him. And we missed out on some of the Cubs conversation we wanted to have, but a big thanks to him for coming on. He and Rob Blackman do great work over on the Purdue Radio Network. Guys, that's all I've got here for today. I appreciate you guys. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas with your families, wherever you may be. I hope it's a wonderful holiday season. I appreciate all of you for listening here to the program. It's always a good time. I really appreciate all of you. And we'll be back next week, another pre-recorded episode. This one will be talking about Purdue football here ahead of a really, really important transfer portal cycle. I don't think we can understate the importance of the next few weeks here for the Boilermaker football program and Barry Odom as they enter year 2. So I'll have a deep episode looking at every position group on the team, looking at the areas of need for Purdue, the areas of priority as we enter the transfer portal. So you can look for that in your feeds. But Merry Christmas, guys. I appreciate you all. God bless. Have a wonderful holiday with your family. Talk to you next week. Take care.